Imagine being locked onto by 6 surface-to-air missiles, each one screaming toward you at thousands of miles per hour. Your only option? Go faster. That's exactly what happened over Libya in 1986. When an SR-71 Blackbird pilot did the impossible, he outran death itself. This isn't science fiction. This is the story of the fastest plane ever built. A machine so advanced that even today, over 50 years after its first flight, nothing has surpassed it. Welcome to the legend of the SR-71 Blackbird. The SR-71 Blackbird isn't just an aircraft. It's a monument to what happens when human ambition refuses to accept limitations. Picture this, a jet that flies at over 2,100 miles per hour. That's faster than a bullet from many rifles. An altitude ceiling of 85,000 feet, where the sky turns black and you can see the curvature of the Earth. At that height, you're basically touching space. But here's what makes this even more incredible. The SR-71 was developed in the 1,960 seconds. The Beatles were topping the charts. Most people didn't even have color television. And yet, a team of engineers created a machine that still holds speed records today. No SR-71 was ever shot down. Not one. Despite being fired upon over 1,000 times during its operational life, every single Blackbird came home. So how did they do it? How did a team of engineers, led by a legendary designer named Clarence Johnson, create something so far ahead of its time that it still seems futuristic? Let's find out. Our story begins in the shadowy world of the Cold War. The year is 1959. The Soviet Union has just shot down an American U-2 spy plane, capturing its pilot, Gary Powers, and humiliating the United States on the world stage. President Eisenhower is furious. The CIA is scrambling. They need something better, something that can't be touched. Enter Clarence Johnson and his team at Lockheed's Skunk Works. If you don't know about Skunk Works, imagine the most top-secret, innovative, daring engineering department you can think of. Then multiply it by 10. This was a team that didn't just push boundaries, they redrew them entirely. Johnson was a genius, but he was also practical. He knew that to survive Soviet defenses, they needed 2 things: speed and altitude. If you fly high enough and fast enough, missiles can't catch you. Radar becomes almost useless. You become a ghost. But there was a problem, actually. Hundreds of problems. At speeds above Mach 3, everything changes. The air becomes a furnace. Metal expands. Conventional materials melt. Fuel boils. Electronics fail. The challenges were so extreme that many engineers thought it was impossible. Johnson didn't believe in impossible. Let me tell you about the insane engineering that went into this aircraft. First, the material. You can't use regular aluminum for a plane that heats up to over 500 degrees Fahrenheit during flight. So, they turned to titanium, lots of it. About 93% of the SR-71 structure is titanium. But here's the problem. In the early 1,960 seconds, nobody really knew how to work with titanium on this scale. It's brittle, it's difficult to machine, and it reacts with almost everything. The team had to invent entirely new manufacturing techniques. They even had to develop special tools, because regular tools would contaminate the titanium and make it weak. And where do you get that much titanium during the Cold War? Well, ironically, the largest supplier of titanium in the world was the Soviet Union. So the CIA set up shell companies to secretly purchase Soviet titanium to build a spy plane that would fly over the Soviet Union. You can't make this stuff up. Now, let's talk about the shape. That distinctive, sleek, almost alien profile isn't just for looks. Every curve, every angle, every surface was designed to minimize radar reflection. The SR-71 was one of the first operational aircraft to incorporate stealth technology. The black paint? It's not. regular paint. It's loaded with iron ferrite, which absorbs radar waves. Even the paint had a purpose. The engines are another marvel. The Pratt & Whitney J58 engines had to operate across an enormous range, from subsonic speeds at takeoff to over Mach 3 at cruise. At top speed, only about 20% of the thrust comes from the actual jet engines. The other 80% comes from the inlet spikes and bypass tubes, essentially turning the engine into a ramjet. It's an engine that becomes more efficient the faster you go. But wait, there's more. The fuel JP7 is so stable that you can throw a lit match into a bucket of it, and the match will go out. It won't ignite. This fuel was specifically developed for the SR-71 because regular jet fuel would explode at the temperatures the Blackbird operated at. To even start the engines, they needed to inject a highly volatile chemical called triethylborane, which ignites on contact with air. The fuel tanks? They leak. Yes, you heard that right. On the ground, the SR-71 leaks fuel like a sieve. Why? Because at high speeds, the aircraft's titanium skin expands so much from the heat that they had to design the fuel tanks with gaps. Only when the aircraft heats up during flight do the tanks seal properly. Ground crews would literally watch puddles of expensive JP7 fuel form under the plane before takeoff. Now imagine being a pilot in this machine. You don't just hop in and fly. First, you have to put on a full pressure suit, essentially a spacesuit, because at 85,000 feet, if something goes wrong, you have about 15 seconds of useful consciousness before you pass out. The air pressure is less than 1% of what it is at sea level. Your blood would literally boil. The pre-flight routine took hours. Pilots would breathe pure oxygen for 30 minutes before flight to purge nitrogen from their blood, preventing decompression sickness. The cockpit temperature could vary wildly, scorching hot on one side from the sun and friction, freezing, cold on the other. But once you're up there, flying at 80,000 feet, it's like nothing else. The sky above you is black, even during the day. You can see the curvature of the Earth. Stars are visible. You're covering a mile every 1.7 seconds. At that speed, you cross the entire continental United States in just over an hour. Navigation at these speeds requires thinking ahead, way ahead. When the SR-71 needed to turn, pilots had to start their turn over 100 miles before the actual turning point. Everything happens so fast that human reaction time becomes a limiting factor. And if something goes wrong, ejecting from an SR-71 at speed was almost certain death until they developed special procedures and equipment. The forces involved were so extreme that several pilots who had to eject suffered severe injuries even with the protection. Let's get back to that mission over Libya in 1986. Tensions were high. Colonel Muammar Gaddafi had been supporting terrorism, and the U.S. needed intelligence. The SR-71 was called in. As the Blackbird approached Libyan airspace, radar operators on the ground knew it was coming. They had been tipped off. 6 surface-to-air missiles were fired in sequence, each one trying to predict where the SR-71 would be. But here's the thing about the Blackbird. Its defense wasn't evasion, it was speed. The pilot didn't dodge or dive. He did something that seems counterintuitive. He pushed the throttles forward and went faster. At over Mach 3, with the aircraft at the edge of its performance envelope, those missiles simply couldn't keep up. The SR-71 completed its mission, photographed everything it needed to, and returned to base without a scratch. The missiles fell harmlessly from the sky, unable to catch their target. This wasn't luck. This was exactly what the aircraft was designed to do. The SR-71 was retired in 1998, but its legacy lives on. No aircraft has ever broken its speed records. Nothing operational has ever flown higher. In an age of drones and satellites, you might think the Blackbird is obsolete. But is it? The technology developed for the SR-71 paved the way for stealth aircraft like the F-117 and B-2. The materials science, the aerodynamics, the propulsion systems, all of it pushed the boundaries of what was possible and opened doors for future innovations. And here's what keeps engineers up at night. Kelly Johnson and his team did all of this with slide rules and raw determination. Imagine what we could build today with modern computers, advanced materials, and artificial intelligence. What would the SR-72 look like? What could we achieve? The SR-71 Blackbird stands as a testament to human ingenuity and the refusal to accept limitations. It proves that when you combine vision, expertise, and courage, you can create something that transcends its era. Every time you see a Blackbird in a museum, remember, this machine could outrun missiles, touch the edge of space, and never not once failed to bring its crew home. It's not just a plane. It's proof that we can build the impossible. The only question is, what impossible thing will we build next? What do you think is the next breakthrough in aviation? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this story of engineering excellence, hit that subscribe button. We've got more incredible stories coming your way.